kick off the paranormal fun of Milwaukee Paracon?
Yes. And so if anybody is watching us on the actual Hey Summit talks page, click on the link to chat with the band if you have questions, or if you're on a phone. You need to click on the link if you're on a phone or to chat with the band, because that's just that page should have a link to make sure everybody can participate if they like. All right. So it is Friday.
Ben is in here.
Yeah, I'm right here. Yeah.
Ben, you got to turn the
Camera
camera
should be
on. We just hear your ghost voice.
I have to turn it on.
Yeah, there's a little thing up in the upper right. Turn it on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mark's drinking ridiculous amounts of bourbon. No, that
sounds
not wrong,
good.
Mark.
That sounds good. When we play the first song, I'm going to slap down
Friday night.
and get a little scotch for myself. There's nothing wrong with that. It was really fun. Number one, to the Weird Week trivia was great. And then also Heidi's ghost stories were fun too. And we want to tell you a little bit of our paranormal adventures of being a band for the past 25 years. That's right. We started when we were 4. And we're just about to hit the big 3-0, so it's getting scary. Hey. All right. And if you guys have any questions, we'd love it. Jump in the chat and say something. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, and there's Ben, and we're all here together in the room.
Hey, the gang's all together.
So I haven't seen y'all since one of your Christmas shows way back when. Well, Jessica, it's nice to see you again.
Glad you could be here.
Yes. Glad you could join us for a little bit of talking about paranormal stories and playing some songs for you. So being in a rock band, that means that we go to play dive bars fairly frequently. Would you say that some bands play arenas, some bands play amphitheaters, some bands play basements? We're not the arena, let's say.
Yeah, well, and you know what?
The first time you two saw Muse was in a basement.
That's
just
true.
happened to be the basement of the Eagles ballroom,
which is a very haunted place as well. And people talk about the old pool at the Eagles ballroom and how that is haunted. Wendy, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, yeah, bands do play arenas and big festivals and things like that. But you know what? If statistically, I bet the majority of bands play at dive bars and the types of venues that we're talking about here, and the old nasty buildings that have all kinds of history and weird stories. So
yes, that's exactly right. So the thing is, when you play those kinds of places, it's funny because when you get in there, they'll just nonchalantly talk about the fact they have ghost stories. And so that's always ridiculous, that you'll just be sitting there and you'll be having a beer, ordering a beer, and they're like, yeah, we're out of it. I got to go change the taps. Well, let me go change. I hate changing the taps after 9:00 because that's when the ghost bothers me. And you're like, what? Most people would just be like, oh, they're, yeah. You're just like, huh? But we're just like, did you say there's a ghost bothering you?
Let's talk.
Yes, right. Let's see what you guys are interested in. And so that's learning about that and going to these places and hearing these stories was inspirational to us because it was something that made it extra fun. It was a way to connect to a place in a different way, to hear about the ghost stories of a place, made it extra cool. And so Wendy and Ben, Jessica Thunder, the Frequency. I've heard a lot about that place. Absolutely. That was the kind of dive bar where the basement had a ton of ghost stories. And I was going to say, Wendy and Ben, when was the first time you guys remember we were out on the road somewhere and somebody said, oh yeah, have you heard the ghost story here?
The first time, huh?
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, I don't remember.
Or most memorable. Or most memorable.
Southgate House. But I mean, there was probably, earlier ones than that.
Well, the Southgate House, just to give you guys a little bit of context. So this was a venue in Newport, Kentucky, which is also Newport's basically a suburb of Cincinnati. And so the Southgate House was built by the guy that invented the Tommy gun. If you look Tommy gun is like when you see gangsters shoot the gun and it's got the big round clip and he's like, "Hey, buddy," whatever. He's firing a Tommy gun named the Thompson machine gun is what it's called. And so Thompson had built this house in Newport, Kentucky, and it's a gorgeous mansion, and now it's a music venue. And so on that music venue, they said that some weird things had happened, and the bartenders and the people who worked at the venue were saying like, "Oh yeah, this place is haunted." And where did they say the most haunted place, the most haunted part was?
Really, that was the attic.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
always the spookiest place in any old mansion.
At 2:00 in the morning, what are we saying? We gotta go to the attic. Come on, guys. Like, hold on. We need one more Jaeger bomb, and we're gonna go straight up to the attic. And I think one show we played there was actually sponsored by Jaeger. So there was like 12 Jaeger bombs. But we're gonna go right
to Red Bull.
Yeah, it was sponsored by an energy drink, and like we couldn't go to bed if we tried. Right.
Hey, everybody, we want to go to the attic at the town's house, see your ghosts. And so we went out there, and they were like, "No way, we're going to take a bunch of drunk people to the attic at 2:00 in the morning." But either way, then it really was the Southgate House and the Thompson House was a very interesting place, and so that was one of the particular venues we played at. Wendy, any venues stick out in your mind where they had a ghost story that you were like, "Holy crap"?
Yeah, immediately I thought of Ballyhoo's up in Merrill, Wisconsin, where they told us they actually had a crew in investigating, doing some ghost hunting in their basement, which a very old building and had a tunnel that connected it to other areas in the city. So obviously very spooky anytime you get a basement with dirt floor. But yeah, we did a little exploration of our own that night because I guess the team that came in and looked had some interesting findings with their ghost hunting gear and whatnot. So that was pretty cool, I thought, even though I ran away like a baby. I was so scared.
We did. I forgot about that, Wendy, right? Because we go downstairs. So we played all night at this bar. This is a place called Ballyhoo's. This is Merrill, Wisconsin. And Ballyhoo's, they said it was a former every place is a former whorehouse in Merrill. No. No, but they said it was a former house of ill repute. They also said that it had been a hotel. When it also had been when the trains were built, the railroad company there. It definitely was a dirt floor mark, and so 2:30 in the morning, the owner of the bar, Denny. Now he is one of our friends' uncles, which we didn't even realize. So Merrill is in the middle of Wisconsin. It's north of Wausau, about a half an hour. It's really right before you get up north. It's like the entrance to up north in Wisconsin. And so we're going to go play this bar. And then our buddy Tony calls us. He's like, "Hey, my uncle owns that bar. My mother's family is entirely from Merrill." We're like, "Okay, sounds good." This is a guy that Ben and I have known since 5th grade. And we go up there and everybody's cool. We're having a great time. We play all night. And the owner, Denny, is just like, you want to see some ghosts? And we're like, "Yeah, Denny, tell us about it." He's like, "The basement's haunted, man. Let me tell you about it." And it's like, okay, we go down to the basement, and I have a digital video camera that uses DV tapes. So this is it's an old DV camera. I'm like, let's take it downstairs. This camera's full charge. As soon as we get down the stairs, the battery is gone. Like it is like walking down the stairs, the battery starts dying. And we use this camera all the time. So
we had it charging during our show to make sure that we could use it after the show.
So because we would do a podcast of us hanging out at the bars and hanging out at the shows. And the fact is we had this charging all night and it had never done this before. and it never did it afterwards. The battery just died like this. And so as we're walking around the basement, one of Denny's family who had worked in the basement was telling us about how they just wouldn't leave him alone. And so it got to be where he felt like he had to say something to the ghosts every day before he got to work so he could actually do some work down there. And I thought that was a fascinating, that was just an interesting story. Right, Jessica, I got this ghost, man. Want to see? Well, yeah, we're going to go see him. Like, what? You got some.
Well, you guys.
Yeah, Wayne?
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, as soon as somebody says that, I'm rushing in full throttle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was after the show. The thing is, this bar had opened up a little cafe. It was brilliant because at the end of the night, when it was time to kick everybody out of the bar, the cafe would open and it would be like, have a bite to eat before you head home. So we were downstairs and Denny was leading the tour of people showing the really creepy, scary basement.
Oh,
man, I was last in line and I could only take it so long. And then I bailed and went upstairs and I got breakfast.
She got too scared and got breakfast. But you know what? And this leads to our first song tonight. And we shot this video last week and we shot it in one of the most notoriously haunted places in Madison. And that's Sanatorium Hill. And we shot it up in Sanatorium Hill because when people talk about haunted places that you can go to outside, like right now, it's not, you can't just go inside. I did do a ghost investigation today at the Overture Center in Madison. But everybody's wearing masks and stuff like that. So it wouldn't make great video, but we could, it was nice to go outside, play some music at this building that used to be a sanatorium, but now it's where Health and Human Services in Wisconsin, where they have their offices. And you can see the whole city from it. But we shot something, a song about how we love finding the weird stuff in life and how that makes it more fun up there last week. So why don't we kick it off with a little bit of our song Mystery, shot in Sanatorium Hill, where people see shadow figures, they get touched, and it is a notorious place for strange experiences here in Madison.
I met a girl who used to dance with some flowers in her hair, barefoot in the street to a song that seemed only she could hear. Well, we talked all night about wrong and right. We talked the Bible and prophecy, yeah. She said she don't care, but God, I swear, as long as I don't tell her what to believe. She said, when we know all there is to know, and there ain't nothing left to comprehend. When you think you found what you're looking for, I believe it's time to think again. Don't try so hard to understand the things you don't need your eyes to see. Oh, knowing it all ain't part of the plan, so just enjoy the mystery. I met an old man who used to laugh at some gag we couldn't hear out loud and big as it took a swig with some joker wasn't even there. Well, he lectured me about our frailty and the difference between man and divine. He said, don't waste your breath talking about your death, or you will live longer than you are alive. Told me, when we know all there is to know, and there ain't nothing left to comprehend. When you think you found what you're looking for, I believe when we know all there is to know, and there ain't nothing left to comprehend. When you think you found what you're looking for, I believe it's time to think again. Don't try so hard to understand the things you don't need your eyes to see. For knowing it all ain't part of the plan, so just enjoy the mystery. For knowing it all ain't part of the plan, so just enjoy the mystery.
All right. That was a little bit of mystery coming at you. And that's a fun one, shooting that one in Sanatorium Hill at the Lakeview Park. All right. We do have a question in the Q&A. Now, Scott's asking, is there a famous ghost story, strange phenomenon, or haunted location that you haven't written a song for that's on your to-do list? All right. Scott, there's definitely a place that I want to go to, and it's called Waverly Hills. Everybody who goes to Waverly Hills Sanitarium, and that's in Louisville, right? Or Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville.
That's in Louisville. Everybody says it's haunted as shit. When we interviewed Christopher St. Booth, who did a movie there, he even had a documentary based on the movie he shot. I think that Dead Still is what he shot there. Ended up making to the, it was a Sci-Fi Channel film. And he said they had so many weird experiences on set that he was able to make a haunted documentary about it. So I want to get out to Waverly Hills and then come back and write a song about it, because I think that would be a lot of fun. So I hope that answers your question, Scott. And I hope you guys liked that song, Mystery.
Hey, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
In the chat, it wasn't in the official Q&A, but in the chat, Otto was asking what the difference is between a sanitarium and a sanatorium. Now, I know the words are kind of interchangeable, but I think, like, in the vernacular, can you explain that? I know that sanatorium is a little more outdated term now, right?
Yeah. So sanatorium would be a place where people would go for usually tuberculosis. And so tuberculosis was a huge thing that was killing people at the end of the 19th and the early 20th centuries. And so a sanatorium usually would handle people with TB. And we had a whole bunch of places in Wisconsin that were dedicated to helping people with TB. So Lake Geneva had a whole bunch of sanatoriums. Waukesha, Wisconsin had a whole bunch of sanatoriums. We'll be telling ghost stories from those places and some of those sanatoriums tomorrow in the American Ghost Walks panel at 9:30 a.m. Wendy and I will both be in that, delivering some ghostly business on you now when we're done with the rock and roll. But sanitarium was more about a place where people who were not mentally able to handle society, it was a place where they could, be taken care of. And sometimes it was a horrible place when you think that the things people talk about, Waverly or Trans-Allegheny, the sanitarium, like people say, like those were very scary places. And then you have some places like in Peoria. We talked to Sylvia Schultz, who is a historian being the Peoria Sanitarium. And she says that they actually, there was a happy place where they took good care of the patients. So you think that the sanitarium is going to be like Metallica, sanitarium, right? Like, it's all going to be lobotomies and and straitjackets. And the thing is that they were doing their best, and there were doctors who were trying to take good care of people and not just keep them in a closet for their entire lives. And so, but the sanatorium was more health for tuberculosis, and the sanitarium, but we will probably show you where Wendy and I did do an investigation, and we're trying to trigger some things with a song in a haunted sanitarium in Greene County. And we'll tell that story in a little bit. Before we get there though, what I wanted to talk about was for our next song, I want to talk about a local Milwaukee area legend, not too far away from where Ben and I grew up. And that's in the town of Muskego, Wisconsin.
Ooh.
And so the first time I heard about this story was after high school, actually. And one of my friends had worked at a supper club in Muskego. So if you guys aren't from Wisconsin, a supper club, I mean, it's basically kind of a rural restaurant where people can, like, you go there, you start with a cocktail, you have a fish fry maybe or something like that, and then it ends with more cocktails. Usually old fashions, would probably be brandy old fashioned, because Wisconsin is the largest consumer of Korbel, right?
Right.
Yes, state drink
on the planet. Mary, cue Metallica's Sanitarium, right? That's such a great song. Puppets is such a good album. And so he was telling me, he's like, yeah, there's this place in Muskego where they say there's I don't know, like elves or something that live. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like elves? He's like, well, they're little people. I'm like, okay, what's the story? So the story is that there's a road in Muskego called Mystic Road. So number one, it's got a perfect name. And number two, he said, you go down Mystic Road and you see some of these smaller houses. They look like shacks almost, but they're not big enough that somebody normal size could walk into. I'm like, well, who lives in them? And he goes, well, the Haunchies. What? What are the Haunchies?
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course.
Right. Like, oh yeah, the
Haunchies.
Haunchies.
You're answering.
So he goes in and starts talking about, like, well, the guys at work, they say that the Haunchies are these little people that live in these places. And there was a couple of different rumors of how they got there. They could be circus midgets, they were called at the time, which we don't use that term anymore because there are people who have dwarfism. There's the people don't have midgetism. So, but it's circus midgets, is what they were called. And they just hate regular sized people. And so they live in this community where they won't be bothered and they won't be hurt by regular sized people anymore. And there's like a giant that protects them who's bald and albino. So there's a giant bald albino that protects this dwarf colony in Muskego down Mystic Road. And he goes, I'm like, well, okay, why do they call them the Haunchies? And he said, well, there's a farmer that lived there. And one day the farmer went missing. And when they went to go look for him, they went into his barn and they found him hung. And he was hung from the rafters of the barn. And beneath him, there were these little footprints that looked like the footprints of little children walking in the barn. And there was a note written in his own blood that said, the Haunchies made me do it. So
Mike, that was the perfect place to have the spooky music playing behind
right?
you.
I totally thought you were going to cue it.
But so
we should have brought flashlights for our faces.
Good storytelling, though.
The Haunchies made me do it. And so they called the area Haunchieville. And so there was this urban legend of a colony of dwarves in rural southeastern Wisconsin who were there to, living on their own, and they didn't want to be disturbed. And if you disturbed them, they would take you out. In fact, the albino with a shotgun would take you out. And that's the story of Haunchieville. And so when I heard that story, I'm like, we're going to Haunchieville. And so like a week later, we're like, go down Mystic Road. We're obviously trespassing. And I know dude, everybody in these ghost things are like, okay, I don't want you to trespass. Like they're all getting their cover your ass stuff out. And I get it. But when I was 20 years old or 18 years or whatever, I cared not about trespassing. And so I just did it. I'm like, we're going to Haunchieville. It says no trespassing when you go down there. I'm like, yep, that's a sign. And I'm not saying you guys should do that, but I'm saying I was a 20-year-old idiot.
Yeah. That's what you do.
Right. You're just like, what? Yeah. Like, I didn't do a lot of breaking because I didn't break any windows. I did a lot of entering. If it was open, I'd go in, check it out. And so we're going to Haunchyville, and it's me and Chris, who worked at the Williams Supper Club, and then Nick, who, I mean, he was probably as tall as that albino. Nick's like at least 6'5". He's a big dude, and he's got a big like fro too. So like that adds like 2 inches to his height. So Nick's a pretty imposing guy. Nice guy, fun guy. And then my girlfriend at the time, we go to Haunchyville, we park, and we start looking for the small houses. So we go through, we're looking for the small houses, and then it's 11 o'clock at night. It's super dark. And then you hear this like something in the, like what? And it sounds like a pterodactyl. So I did the brave thing, and I ran.
Let me guess. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, and I just ran away.
No need to dwell.
Yeah, and Nick, I remember Nick's like, he's like, you just left me behind. I'm like, Nick, you got like a foot on me, dude. You can take care of yourself.
Nice.
Right? I grabbed my girlfriend. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't farmer's carrier, put something close. So she's like, let's get out of here. Because I didn't want her to die or get eaten by the pterodactyl. And so we went to Haunchyville. I didn't see any of the houses, but interestingly enough, when you actually do the research on Haunchyville, you find out that there used to be Muskego Beach was a amusement park by the lake in that area. And so they did have like amusement park kind of stuff, little houses. That's what people were seeing. No little people actually lived there, I think is what we're trying to say. And the Haunchies made me do it with...
You could see where those rumors might have started, though.
Absolutely. And as we were learning more about it, we find out that places all over the country. Near Cincinnati, they had a place called Tiny Town. The same background story as Haunchyville. San Antonio had Midget Mansion. And our friend Vic told us about like sneaking in there when he was a kid. And it eventually burned to the ground. But it was an abandoned mansion in San Antonio. And there was the same story. But Midget Mansion, the story was that the circus midgets were so angry at regular sized people that they hired regular sized people to be their servants, and they treated them like shit. And the servants are the ones that eventually burned the place to the ground, and the whole place was haunted or whatever because of that. But in Maryland has the same kind of thing. So this idea of these colonies of little people who are upset about the treatment in the circus is almost like it's an Americana. It's when you talk about something that's as American as apple pie, these stories are all around the country. And we had our own called Haunchyville. So you know what? We wrote a song about it. Want to hear it?
Like to hear it? Here you go.
Here goes. All right, be careful. You don't want to go there.
Going down the old farm road, and you're not alone. There's something in the cornfield. Are you fast enough to outrun an albino with a shotgun? He's got
So, Mike, I thought that was the story where you left your girlfriend behind. That must have been a different ghost chasing story where you were so
Oh,
scared that.
I think that was the marsh. Wasn't that the
Yeah, I think you're
the
right.
marsh
That may
story?
have been the Shadow People one.
Not sure. Ben, have you been to Haunchyville?
I haven't. You'd think I grew up like 4 miles from there, like. And I went to Muskego all the time. I'd go to Sports Shack for some live bait and some video rentals, like
Nice.
and the outdoor theater there, and the like that was the closest pick and save. It was like a 10-minute drive, so or Century,
But
or
I'm
whatever.
sure you heard. Yeah, I'm sure you heard all kinds of stories from friends
Oh
talking
yeah,
about Haunchyville, though, huh?
yeah,
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's just interesting how those local stories travel, especially when you're a kid. Like that's what you live for, is like sitting around with your friends on the weekend and just what else are you gonna do? Tell
totally
stories or run around exploring places that
right.
some of
Mike,
which are off limits.
Mike was talking about San Antonio, and I remember when we went to the place where that bus full of kids was killed. What was that? I can't remember how they died. Did they get hit by a train or something, or like?
Yeah, it's an urban legend, and I think there is some history behind it, but yeah, supposedly there was a school bus of kids that got hit by a train, and it's really a creepy area because there's the train tracks, and then there's a little neighborhood, and all the street names are like, oh, I just got goosebumps just thinking about that.
Right, because it's super creepy.
The street names are like Mary Jane, Tommy John, or what, like all little kids, like their first and middle names. So, but anyway, the big thing to do there, welcome back, Mike.
Yeah.
We were just talking about another San Antonio legend that we investigated while we were on tour.
Oh, that's right.
And
first of all, I got to say, Mark Johnson, don't have to be faster than the Haunchies, just faster than your girlfriend. So
nice.
Tonight, when I said I grabbed my girlfriend, I might have been lying. At the time, I probably wanted the pterodactyl to get her. Yeah, but the San Antonio thing, I think, okay. And you guys talked about how the little handprints.
No,
well,
we were
working at it. You interrupted us.
Okay, I'm out.
Wendy, you were saying.
So, well, I think, Ben, you were the one that, didn't you tell us or hear the story initially?
Well, because like when you were talking about the small footprints under the guy who hung himself, it reminded me of the story in San Antonio.
But when we were there, I thought that you had
Wendy was saying,
heard
and there's all these
the legend
street names in this neighborhood,
like
but
your or something like
that. Some of what you said there when you kind of froze up, but yeah, I'd heard the legend that if you put like baking soda on your bumper, and approach the railroad tracks, that like the kids will push you across the railroad tracks and leave small handprints. So that's what made me think of that story, because Mike was talking about the small footprints, and I was thinking about the the small handprints. Right. So like, but really, like if you get to the bottom of the hill, like you can see that even though it looks like a physical impossibility, there actually is a decline. But anyway, we tried it, and yeah, like you look at all the kids' names in the streets and stuff, and like, yeah, it's one of those goosebumps ones. So
pretty good. All right. I had a little internet hiccup there.
We tried it. We took the van and we baby powdered its bumper.
Okay.
We're talking. Hello.
Yeah, no, Wendy, we got you now. So, no, sometimes we have little internet hiccups. Everybody, we're doing things online. Welcome to the Zoom universe. We'll be your hosts. Sorry that the world ended like this. We were hoping it would end more in an Armageddon.
Friday, everybody's screaming.
Right. We were hoping it would end differently, but this is where we are. So, to talk about a little bit more fun. Oh my God, I can't believe we haven't prepped this video yet. Guys. This song is about going to places and spending the night in haunted locations. So everybody in the chat, who in the chat has gone to specifically gone to a haunted hotel or a place to spend the night because it was haunted? And now I've done that. Wendy, where's the most memorable place you think you've gone to specifically spend the night in a haunted location?
I can't tell if she's lost in thought or if she's frozen again.
No, she's frozen. Okay. We'll get to Wendy. She's going to come back in. Ben, have you gone to a place specifically because you wanted to have a paranormal experience?
I mean, the Maxwell Mansion.
Oh, yeah, we just went there.
I've never stayed overnight for the purposes of getting ghosted, getting approached by ghosts. And
all right.
And so.
Well, to go back into my cowardice as a young man, it's funny. So when Heidi was doing the ghost story happy hour, she was talking about the mirror. And so the plantation is in Francisville, Louisiana. Is scary. It's about an hour from New Orleans. And so there was a dad. I went there, my family, and then we all hung out at Myrtle's plantation, just like scary ghost stories. It's a scary ghost for all slaves, like it's all about like this slave was too bad, so she poisoned the kids, and then the kids died, and the kids wanted revenge, the slaves wanted revenge, and it's all unpleasant ghost stories. And so we're staying at the Myrtle's plantation, but my family leaves to drive back to New Orleans, where we had not an Airbnb, because Airbnb was around, but we had a house we were staying at in the Garden District. And so they drive the hour and a half back, and they leave me and my sister to stay at the Myrtle's plantation alone. And I find out there's nobody from there staying there. It's just us and two other people. And the two other people got scared before it got nightfall and left. There was another group of people who were hanging out there that were staying at a place, but it was just Allison and I staying at the Myrtle's plantation. And I stayed up all night long, because I'm like, I don't want to see any ghosts. Like I was scared because all the stories were scary. I walked around, and then the mirror that Heidi was talking about supposedly has handprints of the children that were poisoned by the slave, who was getting revenge on her master because she had an affair with him. And then like the wife found out, and he had her ear cut off. And it was this, you find out that Chloe, the slave, that whole story is not true. She never existed. The person that was murdered on the front steps, that story never happened. Most of the stories of the Myrtles are just apocryphal. But of course, it still was a plantation that had slaves. So there was a lot of human suffering that went on there. And I can imagine why 1 million people have ghost stories in regards to the Myrtles plantation. That night we were there, we didn't see anything weird. The ghost hunters saw a bunch of weird stuff there. But I did see the mirror, and it does have spots on it that could look like handprints. But they are not the handprints of murdered children. It's still a scary place. That's the first place I went to spend the night, at a haunted location, specifically because it was haunted. And that was at the Myrtles in San Francisco, Louisiana.
Is that the same New Orleans trip when your roommate wrote a $300 check to himself from your checkbook?
Oh, yeah. And so the other part of that, I mean, there was a lot of fun on that trip. We actually ran into Troy Taylor randomly. Troy Taylor from Haunted America. he was there randomly in front of us in line at John Lafitte's bar, which is the oldest bar in the United States.
Oh, wow.
It's like a bar from like 1789. And John Lafitte is a pirate that, I mean, he owned Galveston Island, Texas. Like there's a whole haunted stories about there. Wendy and I have been down there. We played in Galveston. It's a lot of fun. But we're in John Lafitte's, and there's Troy Taylor from Haunted America sitting in front of us, and we ended up having a conversation. But on that trip, I went to a casino with my mother, and I had saved a couple $100, and I was going to spend it at this casino. I go to the ATM, and the ATM says I don't have any money. And this is like, 20 some years ago. So I'm broke, but I'd saved money. And I'm like, what's going on that I don't have any money in my account? When I got home, I called the bank and I found out my roommate had taken checks from my checkbook and written them to himself. Be careful who you live with, everybody, is the message. Because that piece of shit also stole all the money from our original CD release party, which is money that my parents had loaned me money to pay for the studio recording. And I was so excited that we made so much money at our first CD release party, I could pay them back. And then what happens is that I hide it in my University of Wisconsin diploma, and I go to get it for them, and there's no money in there. There's no cash in there when I open the thing. Anyway, be careful who you live with, everybody. But the real story we want to talk about is this is the video for our song Spend the Night, which is all about spending the night at haunted locations. It was used in Hell Year 2. Who also appears in Hell Year 2 is John Tenney, who will be here tomorrow at 5:15 p.m. John's going to do a presentation, do some talking and Q&A. But as it appears in Hell Year 2, here is our song, Spend the Night. And we'll get Wendy back in while we're watching this video.
Spend the night in the killer's bed. Gonna spend some time in her head. Well, I'm here to talk to the dead, and I'll spend the night. I'll spend the night in a murder scene, hoping some rubs off on me. Well, I don't get queasy, and I'll spend the night. Is it the fear I want to face? Is it the memory of the chase? Is it the blood I want to taste? I just don't know. Is it a lust for the profane, or a dream of the insane? Well, we just can't explain, and we'll spend the night. Spend the night on the battlefield, where the wounds never healed. We'll see what the worms reveal when I spend the night. I'll spend the night with the gallows pole in my hand, Sharon's oboe. I'll sleep in a 6-foot hole and I'll spend the night. Is it the fear I want to face? Is it the memory of the chase? Is it the blood I want to taste? I just don't know. Is it a lust for the profane, or a dream of the insane? Well, we just can't explain, and we'll spend the night. Oh, we just can't explain, and we'll spend the night. No, we just can't explain, so we'll spend the night.
Oh, and they disappeared. How'd they do that? Okay, that was Spend the Night. That's always a fun one. And okay, we had people in the chat on Hey Summit say, how can I get the Haunchies song? Okay, now the Haunchies song we'll probably put on YouTube once we finish the video. That'll be there. You can get that there, and we might do a version of that in the big studio eventually because that was recorded at home. Also, comments: me and the girlfriend want to spend the night in Vlad Dracul Castle. I heard that is really haunted. Fun times. Shit, yeah, I want to go to Romania. Eastern Europe is a bucket place for me because I'm a Polak and I want to get back there and see where my people came from. I want to eat some potato soup and shit, just like my ancestors. I want to go back to the village. Well, where we're from, I think my 23andMe says it's all Warsaw, so it's probably not a village, but I still want to see it. Also, you can't hear me, but I'm clapping. Make sure you if you want to join and say something, make sure you click on that big marker link that's in the comments at the top. I know that we do have an embed link that's on the Hey Summit page, but if you want to join us and talk in here, just click on that link. All right, Christine, love that song. Thank you. Mark gives a big shout out to Scott. Yeah, Scott Marcus did a great job shooting that video. Made it look good, and it's always fun to edit video that looks good. So he made that easy. And Mary asked about sharing the video we made at the Haunted Hotel recently. Yes, and we will have that video up the week before Halloween for our song, I Don't Want to Be a Ghost. And we're excited to get that ready for you all. We spent a lot of time in Texas, but I still do not want to make that part of my vocabulary because I feel like I'm betraying my northern roots, even though I do love the Texans. Anyway, if you guys have any questions, we got a good group here in the attendees section. If you guys jump in and ask some questions and throw it in there, we'd love to talk a little bit more about questions you might have for the last few minutes of this presentation. The Milwaukee Paracon has always been good. We've been playing at it since the second one, and we've been at every one so far. We've been at every one so far. And it really is fun to celebrate weirdness in southeastern Wisconsin. We all live in Madison now because Madison's fucking great. But we all grew up in the Milwaukee area, and our hearts are there because our families are there. And it really is a beautiful place. And so much cool stuff and so much weird stuff is there. And so I think one of the reasons we want to celebrate these things is because when we were kids, you'd see stuff on TV, and it all took place in New York or California because that's where they make TV shows, right? Like, it's okay. It's where they make TV shows. So you're always like, oh yeah, well, Three's Company, they're in Los Angeles, so I want to go to Venice Beach. Well, I've been to Venice Beach, and it is nice, because especially in wintertime. But it's not that much more weird than any place we have in Milwaukee or Madison or in Wisconsin. So the thing is, learning these legends and history of the places where we live is really exciting to make us feel connected. They always talk about the Native Americans, about like how they felt connected to the land because their ancestors were there for thousands of years. And so as European derived, our ancestors might have only been here for like 120, 150 years. But that doesn't mean we don't have legends and lore and interesting things about the place that can't make us feel connected to these places. And so that's the kind of thing the Milwaukee Paracon is about. That's the kind of thing we write songs about, because obviously we feel connected to the places we're raising our children, we're having our lives, we're here. So Christine, where'd you film the video for that last song? That was in it's called The Barn?
In the Arctic.
It was in the Arctic. And it's a wedding barn.
Token Creek, right?
Emily's Ten Oaks Ranch on Portage Road. It's temporarily closed because everything is temporarily closed right now. It's a beautiful place. Emily's Ten Oaks Ranch. I'll put that in the link. It is a great place. They have goats and shit. I know you guys love goats.
The wind chill was like 21 degrees in the unheated barn.
Yeah. And so that's why you can see my breath. Like, it was dangerously cold. I lost 2 toes during the filming of that video.
Wendy was the real hard ass for that shoot.
Yeah, she had to wear the skirts and stuff like that. Like, we had pants. Like, I got from Malot's Pharmacy. I got a nice costume for that. And she was like, she just went up. She's like, I bought a Western thing on Amazon. Wendy, we're gonna have to make a Western movie just so you can wear that dress again. Oh, we lost you. We can't hear you. Hold on, let's make sure Wendy's microphone is on. Unmute. Okay, try it again, Wen. Oh. Wendy, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. And I don't know what's going on specifically.
Do you want to put it in the chat, Wendy?
Yeah.
You look like you have something cool to say.
Yes, very much so. It's not important. Well, hey, it's not important. I don't think so. So guys, we're Sunspot. If you guys enjoy the music you're hearing tonight, make sure you check out. We do have a sweet offer for you. We get a free CD with shipping and handling. You can get it for no money, just for the money that it takes to buy an envelope and send it to you. Oh, Wendy said she would have worn the outfit to the Mamas this year. Oh yeah, that'd have been great. That would have been great. Jessica, there might be an interpretive dance coming up. You never know. Let's do another haunted song for everybody. Christine, sorry, I'm drunk. You don't got to be sorry for that. It's Friday night, and you're at the closest thing you're going to get to a rock show for a while. So this is the time. This is the time. Use charades, like online charades. Like, it'd be funny. She's like, okay, guys, what do you think about this? Paranormal charades. That's for next year at the Milwaukee Paracon. Hopefully it won't be online. We can do it all in person.
Ghosts, aliens. Yes. I love it.
So, okay. Now, speaking of sanitariums, so we're going to do at least one more song tonight to talk to you guys about it. And so, because we got a good crowd of attendees in here tonight, and we want to make sure we're having fun with you guys. So, and we'll also we need to get Wendy back on because obviously she's a very important part of our band and our lives. And the thing is, so about 2 years ago, my wife is an attorney that works with different health and human services counties throughout Wisconsin. And so she goes to Greene County, which is a more rural county in Wisconsin. And she's at their old Health and Human Services building, which is an old sanitarium built in the 1860s. And not a sanatorium, but a place where they kept people who had real trouble. And so there's a lot of crazy psychic energy left there. But they were about to demolish it and build a new building for the offices of the people that worked in Health and Human Services. And so my wife is there. She's talking to them. She's delivering a presentation. And she's talking to some of the girls that are working in the office. And they just say to her randomly, "Oh, yeah, we're going to move next week. They're going to demolish this building." I don't want to say it too loud because, well, the ghosts don't like it. And my wife's like, "Oh, what?" And they're like, "The ghosts don't like it. Last time we talked about this, they knocked our cups off the walls and they kept us, they were bothering us all day." And she goes, "You should probably talk to my husband." So that's got the number. And we talked to the people who were the place, and they were like, "Yeah, you guys can do a ghost investigation here and you can hang out. But we have to warn you, there's no heat in the building." And so we went the day before Thanksgiving in 2018 and did a ghost investigation there and shot this next video. And Scott shot it with some of his paranormal equipment. And it was about 36 degrees. So we always shoot in haunted locations when they are freezing. And right, Scott, Mike's wife, the person who was the least interested in the paranormal, who always seems to be a beacon for it. That's how it goes. Like, I love it, but no ghosts give a shit about me. And the guy that ran the place, actually the director of Health and Human Services in Greene County, was very cool and very accommodating. He came out and he's like, "I want to see the band." And he let us play songs in the sanitarium right by the places where they had the most ghost activity. So this is our video. We did Pretend, which is an old song that we've played. And we recorded it in an actual haunted asylum in Greene County, Wisconsin, a couple weeks before it was torn down. So let's check it out. Okay, rolling here. All right.
That the earth was round and we were 16 again. We could drive all night until the sun comes up, my friend. I'll listen for your name in the wind. And I think I missed the train. Well, I guess I should have bought a ticket. I don't think I had the change. Time slips by and I'm still the same. We were running hand in hand. I didn't know you'd go so fast. That's why I just don't understand how you reached your destination and I'm still living in my best. Wouldn't it be fun to pretend that the earth was round and we were 16 again? We could drive all night until the sun comes up, my friend. I'll listen for your name in the just a step behind the time. Wouldn't it be fun to pretend that the earth was round and we were 16 again? We could drive all night until that sun goes out, my friend. I listen for your name in the wind. I listen for your name in the wind.
Talking about our band, Sunspot. Okay. So that was really fun. Playing music in a haunted location is really a fun thing to do. And that's part of it. And we're going to play one more song for you from our haunted location before we go tonight. But thank you for coming to the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference 2020. It's all online, so we can't be here in person with everybody, but we certainly are excited that everybody's here. Wendy, you want to start talking now? No, she's still muted. So I don't know what's happening with your mic, Wen. But we'll work it out. It's all right. Wendy's she's doing the signing portion of this. She's the ALS portion, ASL portion of this thing, right? Make sure if you guys enjoyed the stuff tonight, if you haven't seen us before, check out free CD with shipping and handling our album Neanderthal. We've always written about these kind of things over time. And so we'll be doing more of it because a lot of bands write songs that are like love songs and things, and they are perfect and they're beautiful. U2 writes political songs, like the best political songs ever written, right? I mean, listen to U2, I listen to the Joshua Tree or the Unforgettable Fire or anything like that. And you're like, man, these songs are really great political songs. They move me. Well, somebody has to write songs about werewolves and love. And that's where Sunspot's going to do for you. So, so this is we're happy to be part of the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. Obviously, we're from the city and we love it. And as far as like haunted places in Milwaukee, we'll have stories for you all weekend. So if you guys are from Wisconsin or from southeastern Wisconsin, there'll be haunted stories. How about a little, for 11 on the Sea on the Other Side podcast. Now, we also do a show where we talk about haunted stuff every week. Now, lately, that's been a Paranormal Tuesday kind of thing where we've done it on Tuesday nights on YouTube. But you can find it all at othersidepodcast.com. And that's where we find the inspiration for our songs. We've interviewed everybody from Jason Hawes from the Ghost Hunters to Jack Osborne from Portals to Hell, Praga from Lords of Acid. There's been a really great bunch of people we've interviewed for our See on the Other Side podcast of interesting paranormal storytellers and stuff. And so it's a great place. Yeah, obviously T, if you guys live in Milwaukee Paracon, T's been on 100 times. And T's family, T's Wendy's cousin. So this is an interesting thing. So like when we talk about the family business, my sister started the Milwaukee Ghost Tour. T started the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference, Wendy's cousin. Like we're all in. Like you have no choice to be with weirdness in Wisconsin. And so See on the Other Side podcast is a really fun thing that we do. And we do Paranormal Tuesdays, and you can find that at othersidepodcast.com is where you can check that out. So, the last song I want to talk about tonight is actually another location in Madison, and we recorded this last week, another haunted location. And this is Forest Hill Cemetery. And so Forest Hill Cemetery is located on the near west side of Madison. And what's interesting about it is it contains the northernmost Confederate cemetery. Okay. Confederates in Wisconsin? What the fuck are you talking about? Okay. So how did they get in Wisconsin? Well, obviously, we're like 350 miles from anywhere near the Confederacy. You got to go to Missouri, right, to get anywhere near. But Camp Randall, where the Badgers play, the reason it's called Camp Randall is it used to be a military camp. And so in the middle of the 19th century, not long after Wisconsin became a state in 1848, Camp Randall was a military encampment where we had a POW prison camp for Confederate soldiers. So you're like, okay, the problem is the Badgers in the 1860s didn't do a very good job of it. And so most of those Confederate soldiers died of dysentery, like the Oregon Trail. In fact, they had to close down the prison camp at Camp Randall because it was too unhealthy, which if you've been in Wisconsin in the 21st century, you're probably like, that's about right. So this was too unhealthy, and dysentery came through, killed hundreds some Confederate soldiers. So they're buried at Forest Hill Cemetery in Madison. And it's called Confederate Rest. And so at Camp Randall now, sometimes people will see a Confederate soldier walking around, like at the camp. In fact, even up until about a couple of months ago, I talked to someone who used to work, be the head of security at the Rayovac factory in Madison. And Rayovac was centered in Madison for a long time. It was on the east side of town, about a mile from my house, where I am right now. And he's like, yeah, I used to be a security at Rayovac. And I remember when one of my security guards told me, she said she saw a Confederate soldier walking through the walls. And he goes, that was weird. He's like, why would you see a Confederate soldier? I never thought about it. And he did not know that there was a Confederate cemetery in Madison, that we had Confederate soldiers here and they died very badly. I'm not defending the Confederacy. I'm just talking about the ghost story. So this happened, and it's that interesting connection that people who had no idea that there was Confederate soldiers laid to rest here in Madison had no idea, and they were like, well, why would you ever see that kind of, that's a silly ghost to see. And he's a person that's into ghosts. And he's like, I always thought that was weird. And those kind of things, those little connections are what make it really interesting. And that's what we want to write songs about. Stuff that's like, hey, connections between people, between humans, where you're like, oh, I did not think that could be real. It's the real uncanny stuff that makes it interesting. And so last week we shot our song Grist for the Mill, which was originally inspired by a Jack the Ripper episode of See on the Other Side podcast. This idea that the people that Jack the Ripper killed, the whores, the prostitutes, they were the lowest of Victorian society. And so this idea that they were acceptable sacrifices in order to make the situation of the poor in Victorian England better is what inspired this song. And so we thought we'd play it for probably poor Confederate soldiers who were grist for the mill in the war factory. And we shot that at Forest Hill Cemetery. And so let's play that and you can check it out. Get those feet stomping, Wen.
When the boots of history start walking, well, you better get in line. 'Cause the great men do the talking and the small men do the dying. When the kings and queens come calling, well, we all know the drill. You and I, my friend, are just grist for the mill. All the smartest flying lieges and the lords. They got the world mapped out on top of a chessboard. They're picking out their moves and they're staking out their claims. And you and I are pieces, just pawns in their game. Well, our lives are planned from start to end. And if you're good, you can pretend, but we don't get to comprehend, because the biggest and the best of us have big plans for the rest of us. History start walking, well, you better get in line. Consecrate and do the talking and the small men do the time. When the kings and queens come coming, well, we all know the drill. You and I, my friend, are just as full of thrill. They're acting as the fates, they're doling out the twine, they're picking out the dates, when we're born and how we die. But you don't understand, no, you don't know the score. Just understand your place to fight a rich man's war. Our lives are planned from start to end. And if you're good, you can pretend, but we don't get to comprehend, because the brilliant and the best of us have big plans for the rest of us. As history start walking, well, you better get in line. Cause the great men do the talking and the small men do the time. When the kings and queens come calling, well, we all know the drill. You and I, my friend, are just good for the bill. When the boots of history start walking, well, you better get in line. Cause the great men do the talking and the small men do the dying. When the kings and queens come calling, well, we all know the drill. You and I, my friend, are justice for the mill. Oh, justice for the mill. Yeah, justice for the mill. We're justice for the mill.
Just Chris for the mill, baby. That's a little Sunspot. Let me come on, get the camera back going on. And so, thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight.
Thanks,
back then. And so, we're so glad to kick off Friday night at the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. Tomorrow is all presentations. And so, it's going to be a lot of fun. Wendy are coming back with the American Ghost Walks panel at 9:30. Scott, who's in this chat right now, he's going to be back. He's going to be at noon tomorrow in that area. So make sure you check out his thing. And we're going to have a lot of fun all weekend long at the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. So thank you for joining us for this. It's not the same as we could all be together, all sweaty and going crazy at a bar, right? They're like, yeah, party time. But we still can party time a little bit at home. And so thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you like the music, make sure you check us out at sunspotuniverse.com. Even if you just want to join the email list, sunspotuniverse.com is the place you can go, and you can get a version of Spend the Night. You can get that MP3, and then we have some more fun stories for you that you're going to get all this week. But either way, we're having a great time. Milwaukee Paracon 2020. And we're looking forward to spending more time with everybody this weekend. If you guys have any questions and we missed it, well, make sure all the people that signed up that are watching this later, make sure go to sunspotuniverse.com and sign up, and you can send us all the questions you need. We got a lot of cool paranormal videos as well as paranormal rock videos, and we'll have a new single coming out in just like a week and a half. So we got to get there. But this weekend is going to be so much fun. So thank you very much for joining us. All you Milwaukeeans, we love you. And we are one of you. And everybody else who is joining us from around the country and maybe the world, thank you so much for joining us in Cheeseland, because we love you too. So everybody out there, We will see you tomorrow and have a great time at the Milwaukee Paranormal Convention. Ben and Wendy, any last thoughts?
Love you, bye.
All right, fair enough.
Thanks,
Wendy.
so much. Have a good night.
We'll get your camera working so you can get back in on the game tomorrow. Everybody out there, thank you so much, and we will haunt you in the morning.